What? Testing. Oh, yeah, that works. Hello. Oh, we had to. Okay, so, insert intro here, right? Okay, so hello and thank you. Welcome to the Skeptic Track, DragonCon 2023. Thank you so much for joining us. With us today, we have Joe. Clap, 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 applause. Yay! Thank you. Yay to the Skeptic Track. Okay, so Jim Underdown is the executive director for Center for Inquiry West and is the founder and chair for CFI Investigations Group. Jim is a first-time DragonCon attendee. And we are so happy to have him here. We've tried so hard to get him here, but thank you so much. I've already bragged about what a wonderful group the DragonCon attendees are. So 15 years we've been trying, yep. So he is with his CFI Investigations Group, is offering $500,000 to anyone who could pass a scientifically controlled test of a paranormal ability. So thank you so much. Don't let him off the stage without telling you about his web series, Skeptilab. Please welcome Jim Underdown.
Thank you. Thanks, Angie, and thanks, Derek, for finally getting me out here. It's a great pleasure. We've been having a great time so far. And to Margaret for making me do the parade tomorrow. So, yeah, everybody's helping out. Yeah. So, yeah, we do this test. We have this test. It's modeled, obviously, on the Randy $1 Million Challenge. And people often come up to me and say something like, boy, you really put people's feet to the fire on this. And it turns out that that exact thing really happened once. There used to be this TV show called Freak Show. Did you ever see this on AMC? It was called Freak Show, and it was shot in Venice, California. And they had me come out to one of the episodes to make sure that what we were seeing on camera was real. And what we were seeing on camera was, instead of a fire walk, which everybody has seen, they put together a walk where this guy, let's see, on the right there, his name is Zamora the Torture King, was going to walk on metal plates that had been heated up in Weber grills. And when I say heated up, I mean orange hot Weber grill. So they wanted to make sure that it was legit and I would keep an eye on it. Yeah, I was right. They fried some eggs, like half an hour afterward, they fried some eggs on it. So, yeah, so I was the person to make sure they did it. And, you know, in a regular fire walk, as long as you move step lively and it's only 10, 12, 15 feet at the most long, you're okay. But with 1/4-inch steel plates, there's an issue with contact and heat. It was like 1,500 degrees. Anyway, I certified it. He burnt the hell out of his feet. And the EMT who was present said he was going to have a couple of long nights ahead of him. And I thought that there was no way to fake the smell of burning feet. I know, it's disgusting, isn't it? But anyway, it was real. So anyway, today, I'm going to talk a little bit about just who we are and what we do. I'm going to talk about 5 of the tests we did, and then a couple of demonstrations that weren't actually tests for the money, but are kind of interesting, I think. And then some things to keep in mind while testing people for these claims. So our organization, the Center for Inquiry, the antecedents of the organization started in 1976. They started publishing Skeptical Inquirer magazine, which was the first sort of organized skepticism look at wacky claims. So that's been around for almost 50 years now. I started the CFI Investigations Group. It was originally called the Independent Investigations Group in 2000. It was just a handful of people. We had a prize right off the bat $5,000. We underwrote that prize out of our own pockets because we thought there should be some sort of reward. And we have two main groups, Los Angeles and San Francisco Bay Area, but we have people all over the country and even in different countries all over the world. There's even a group in South Africa that we work with. And we spend more time in the later years working on testing, especially as the test money has gone up, as opposed to investigations. We spend a lot of energy on testing. In 2011, so we went from an independent group, and then the Center for Inquiry started underwriting the prize, $50,000 in 2011, 100,000 in 15, and then we became part of the Center for Inquiry in 18, and raised the prize again to 250, and now we're at $500,000. So that's what you tell your friends at the dinner parties who say that they have magical abilities. Hey, you don't just have to sit here and talk about it. Go win a $500,000. And by the way, the person who brings the winner, the eventual winner, not just anybody, but the winner, that person wins $5,000. So we threw that in there to put some heat on all the friends to like tell their psychic friends, come on, why aren't you applying? It's $5,000 for me too. Okay, so there's no secret about there being lots of different paranormal beliefs out there. I'm not going to go through all these. But some of these things, like the ability to move things with your mind, 26%, 85 million people in America believe that you can move something with your mind. That's testable, everybody. That is a testable claim, as is fortune tellers and psychics who say they can see into the future. Just got an application this morning from someone in Brazil who says he sees into the future. So, I'm going to give you guys a quick quiz. One question. In 23 years of testing, what percentage of applicants to the prize have tried to cheat or trick us? It's multiple choice. So far, no one. A. B. About half try to scam us. Or C. Almost everybody. How many think it's A? Nobody. Okay. One guy, and then he changed his mind. Okay. About half. Anybody? A few. 100%. Vast majority of the crowd. May be surprised to learn that the answer is A. Nobody in 23 years has tried to trick us. That was it. Yeah, what is right? I was a surprise to me too, because the way when we talk about setting up a protocol for these tests, it's all about people trying to trick us. That's what we spend a lot of our energy on, making sure people don't trick us. But the fact of the matter is, nobody has. Now, this is a self-selecting group. When they start hearing about what the protocol and what the safety measures are going to be, the people who maybe come to this thinking that they're going to try to trick someone go away. And a lot of people go away, by the way. We have between 150 and 200 applications a year. I have almost a dozen people working, they're called first responders, on dealing with these applicants. And yeah, by the time they get to showing up to an actual test, they all honestly think they're going to believe they're going to pass. So I thought that was interesting too. Okay, so there's a few just general things that we keep in mind when we're setting up these tests, which I've cleverly named Underdown 6 Suggestions. First and foremost is control the environment. I'm not going to go to your house that you've set up while I'm not there and test you there. You got to come to us or somewhere that we trust. We brainstorm the cheats. What does that mean? That means have some understanding about what this claim is. Most of these claims have been around for centuries, even millennia. So we go back and we have some understanding of what people have done in the past. And people like James Randi and other people who in the past have tested people what to watch out for. And then we always overthink things to ourselves. Understand the odds. What does this mean? Well, when somebody says, you guys know what Zener cards, the plus, the wavy lines, the square, there are 5 Zener cards. So a typical Zener card test is to do 25 guesses. So know what the odds are out of 25. You're going to get 4, 5, or 6 right on average. And if you start getting into the 9, 10, 11, 12 range, something extraordinary is happening. Keep the number of insiders to a minimum. I don't talk about this a lot, but even during the tests, not everybody, even on my team, knows what the answer is. If there's an exchange of information type test, like a telepath or someone who's like sending information through the ether, almost nobody knows what the right answers are. Not that I don't trust our team, I do, but the fewer people that know the right answer, like in any double blind test, the better. Um, Focus just means don't be, any magician knows that there's misdirection all the time. People start having a fun conversation or something. Like Uri Geller used to do this, when he's bending spoons or keys or something. He's having some conversation, and, at some point, he's bending the spoon or the thing in a very discreet way. So when I tell someone, watch his hands the whole time, I don't listen to anything. Don't be a nice person. Just watch his hands the whole time. And then no last minute changes. And this is regular scientific protocol. You don't get to change the rules in midstream. So the tests are two-part. Part one is called the preliminary demonstration. When odds can be assigned, and they can't always be assigned. When they can be assigned, we shoot for 5,000 to 1 or in that neighborhood. And if someone passes that test, then we go to 1,000,000 to 1 odds. That's for the money, 1,000,000 to 1 odds. Now, when I say odds can't always be assigned, well, we had a woman who flew out to Los Angeles from Philadelphia who said she could make me pee in my pants. I'm not kidding. On demand, she said she could make me pee in my pants. I said, well, we don't have to do that twice. This is for the money. She changed her line. She got all the way to the Starbucks, like a block from our building. And she said God told her, don't take the test. Well, for once, God was right. Couple more rules. Claimants pay all their own expenses. I mean, we have people in, I just said Brazil. There's people all over the world. I'm not going to Morocco to test you. So you got to get here. Or the exception is if we know someone in the area, like Atlanta, we have some great people in Atlanta who have helped put together some tests. We might be able to work something out. Otherwise, you got to come to us. You have to pay anything all the expenses. We're not even going to buy you lunch. And if there are big expenses that cost us money beforehand, you have to pay beforehand. A couple more rules. We are not part of the test. And this sounds obvious, but so many people are like, you can hear my thoughts right now. No, I can't. Um, I'm not in this. This is going to be you and someone else. So bring your own telepathic receiver. We're not going to find that person for you. Use someone who has already been successful with you. Um, you know what? I'm going to look at your ghost photo, but it doesn't count. Your video doesn't count. Your EVP audio recording doesn't count. We may listen to it, but it doesn't count. You got to do this face to face. And the last thing is no one can risk injury, which you think, why is that a rule? But we've had multiple cases where people have told us they can do stuff that's like dangerous. A guy in Germany applied for the prize and he said, I can stop a bullet from hitting me. So I called our corporate counsel, Nick Little, and I said, hey, the guy says he can stop a bullet. I'm going to shoot him. And Nick says, no, you're not. And I said, Come on. There'll be one less believer in the world. And he said, no. I said, small caliber. No. I said, what if I just wing them? He said, no. How about a BB gun? No. Paintball? No. Keep going. I It went down to a Nerf gun. It's like, this is hardly even worth it, but where's the price this guy is going to pay? Um, so anyway, that never happened. But that's not the only person who's made that claim. Someone in Nigeria made that claim as well. Some of these things are the tests are very time consuming. Uh, Someone said that he could uh, do a binary prediction like a coin flip. He said he could guess a coin flip at a rate of 60%, which really ain't that impressive, especially if you're only flipping 10 times. So obviously, we need lots of flips for this to show an actual effect. So we did the math on it, and you got to flip it 300 times, you know, to be relatively safe with the results. So that means 300 flips. We're sitting there all afternoon waiting for this guy to do these things. It's not glamorous, people. Um, a lot of people say they can do lots of different things, and a lot of it's not testable. So we spent a fair amount of time just sort of narrowing them down to actual testable claims. And you can just tell people have no knowledge of science and its methods and what probability is and things like that. I mean, you see, everybody's been, I don't know if you're at the Hilton or not, but if you're at the Hilton, you're standing waiting for elevators and you're trying to divine which elevator is going to open up. And, if that happens every now and then, you're not psychic, okay? Do it, 100 times and we'll see how you do. So far, they've all failed. We ask why, what happened? Why weren't you able to perform? If there were odds and they, got one or two right or whatever, we try to tell them, well, this was the odds of getting one or two right. We try to say, look, this is what we think is going on here. This is why you think you're having this experience. And I mean, I make jokes about people who apply for this, but really we're very nice and compassionate to these people. Some of them are just ignorant about how the universe works. Some of them have other problems, but we're not there to humiliate people. We're trying to actually provide a teaching moment, and not just to them, but to the rest of the world. The 85 million people who believe in some of this stuff, to show them that in a fair test, and the people agree with the test too. We work with them to create the test. It's not just us saying you must do this. We figure out what they say they can do and what we will accept, find the middle ground, and let them do it. So it is fair, but we're not here just to give people a hard time. Now, as you might imagine, there is a bit of mental illness worked in with this. We don't diagnose people because well, some of us are psychologists. I have 3 psychologists and a psychiatrist on our team. So we have mental health professionals, but they're not spending hours and hours and hours with these people. But the people are often exhibiting symptoms of known mental illnesses. Okay, when you're hearing voices in your head, you're seeing things, you're paranoid about black vehicles being parked in front of your house, those are known symptoms of mental illness. And we get a lot of that, especially with the telepaths. Almost all of them are exhibiting these symptoms. A lot of them just admit that they have they're on meds or that they're seeing someone. I actually got a call from a mental health institution in Northern California. The guy called me from the nut house to apply for our prize. And I said, okay, I'm going to need a note from your doctor. And as soon as we get that, we'll move forward with the test. That never happened. That being said, being mentally ill, being drunk, being high, being anything does not preclude you from having paranormal ability. what am I to say? Who am I to say? I can't just. There's the someone right there might be drinking at this moment. Um, so we can't just start disqualifying people because we don't like the way they look or that they had a glass of wine at lunch or whatever. So, frankly, we're pretty open about people doing that, and I'll show you that in one of the tests that I'm going to talk about. So one of the last things we say before we actually start the test, and I learned this from James Randi himself, is there any reason you can't perform your ability here today? 100% of them say, nope, everything's fine. Let's do this. And a lot of them are cocky son of a bitches too. Most of them are really surprised when they can't do it. They're like, Jesus, worked at home yesterday. I don't know what's going on. And then there's a little bit of a break and they start backpedaling. We cheated them. We changed the protocol. We did this. We did that. It wasn't fair. We wronged them somehow, even though a second before they started the test, they said everything was fine. Okay, let's do some tests now. First big test we did, Sparky the Wonder Dog. Psychic dog. I know, I did like Sparky. I didn't like his owner, but I like Sparky. His owner was a guy named Gordy, and the reason we got him was because he was trying to get onto the Tonight Show. And the Tonight Show, I don't, you may not know this, but Johnny Carson was buddies with James Randi. So Carson said to Gordy, if you pass Randy's $1 million challenge back then, not no longer in effect, then we'll put you on the Tonight Show. So Randy sent him to us. So what he said the dog could do is Gordy would stand in front of him with a handful of placards, big placards, 1 through 7 on the placards, and he'd say, "Okay, Sparky, how many?" And Sparky would start barking, bark, 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 get to 5 or whatever, and yes, 5, and he'd flip it over, and it was a 5. So we're like, okay, this sounds like Clever Hans, exactly. Some of you know Clever Hans was a horse in Germany at the turn of the last century, beginning of the last century, who could do these simple math problems. And it turned out that Hans, they'd say, "What's 4 times 3?" And he'd paw out the number. In a very subtle way, Hans's owner would shift his body language in a real subtle way. But Hans, the horse, was sharp and read that body language and would stop pawing when he saw his owner. So we thought that's probably it, but we overthought the cheats. We thought he's got a dog whistle in his mouth, he's got a transmitter and a shock collar. Maybe they're sending a scent through the air somehow. We're thinking of all this stuff. He sent us a video. Sparky was behind a shower door, a wavy shower door, and he did it behind the shower door, and we weren't quite sure if he could see through there or not. Anyway, I intercepted them back in the days of cable access. Gordy was doing a cable access show with the dog. So I got there, and right before they started, I said, "Would you mind if let me move this plant in between you for a second? Could you see if Sparky could do it real quick?" And this plant was not in good shape. I mean, think Charlie Brown Christmas tree. You could see right there. So he tried to do the trick with Sparky, and Sparky couldn't do it, even with the crappy tree in between. So that made me a little more relaxed. When he got to CFI, we just put a curtain in between him and Gordy, and he'd said, how many Sparky? And Sparky kept barking and barking and barking and barking. And Gordy finally said, "Shut up, Sparky. Stop barking." That's what I said. Don't get mad at the dog. It's not his fault. So he failed miserably. He didn't get to go on the Tonight Show, and he didn't win our $5,000 to boot. Oh, there's a couple more pictures of Sparky. He was a nice dog, though. He did a bunch of commercials. He paid off anyway. Okay, here's Anita. I talked about trying to or having to pay in advance. Here's the queen of having to pay in advance. Anita's claim was that she could look into a human body and see if you were missing a kidney or not. Yeah. It's a valuable skill if you could do it. Imagine the X-ray fees you would save. And a kidney is pretty big. It's the size of your fist. So, I mean, everyone in this room, even in the back, could see if I got a fist on the end of my hand with your eyes. So, um, but there were a lot of complications. So, first of all, we had to find people who were missing kidneys, um, which ain't easy. I mean, you can't just call a hospital and say, "Got anyone who's missing a kidney who can help us out here?" But that wasn't the only problem. Um, we had to verify afterward whether there was a kidney there, even if we found these people. So that meant hiring an ultrasound machine and a tech to run it. So we had to do that, and and then we had to find these people who were missing kidneys. Now, um, one of the things we did was we had to do a lot of research on this. We wanted to make sure that there was no way to look at someone and be able to tell if they're missing a kidney. And even more subtle things like if you had scars on your body, maybe you were in a bad car accident or something, and that would give someone a hint. We didn't want to give, so we put everybody in the same T-shirt, the same hat, covered the back of their necks, just to try to wash it out a little bit. Three groups of six people. Anita had to pick the person and the side that was missing the kidney. You had to nail it, and she had to get all three groups correctly. Three guesses only. Here's something we found out. Live donors most often give left kidneys. Why is that? It's easier to get to, says the physician. Exactly. You got your liver over here, and there's all kinds of stuff on this side. It's a lot easier to get your left kidney. So now we're looking for people who are missing right kidneys because we figure Anita knows this little juicy little statistic. And so we got people who were missing right kidneys. So it took 20 volunteers. It took the ultrasound machine. There's her worksheet that she signed off on. She's making all these notes. And then the ultrasound person. And there was a little bit of danger in this because some people are missing a kidney and they don't know it. So there was a little bit of a danger that one of our control people, who we thought had two kidneys, might not have actually had two kidneys. But she got one right, which turned out to be not that difficult. It was only, I forget what it was. I think it was less than 10 to 1 odds to get one right. But that was it. And we sent her packing. She came in from South Carolina and had to pay all that money and the $750 for the machine. Yeah, she chose Derek and another. She got tested twice. She crashed and burned both times at a TAM that also did not go well for her. Yeah, she wouldn't take no from an answer for an answer. Okay, this is Philip. Philip's claim was clairaudience. Clairaudience is the ability to hear at a distance, hear something at a distance. Now, this was a little bit tricky because we wanted to make sure that what we were talking about was not just someone with great hearing. So, fortunately, especially in our old building, it was a big building. It's a concrete and steel construction. We put Philip on the stage of the Steve Allen Theater, and then the people who were doing the speaking were upstairs and on the other side of the building. And then we built a little fort out of standing up couches because we wanted to absorb all that sound. So we're speaking into the fort, and the fort is eating up all the sound. And we tested this with air horns before and everything. So he didn't even know what the words were going to be. He couldn't get the first one. He couldn't get the second one, and then he quit after the second one. The test was over. What we found out in the debriefing afterward, and his father was there, and he's talking to our psychiatrist on staff. Why do you think you could do this? And in the course of talking to him, we found out that his brother had taken him to a psychiatrist, and he was diagnosed with schizophrenia. That's the voices he was hearing. the two brothers come back, and the uber Christian father would not let him be treated medically for the schizophrenia. And the brother took him secretly, and he started getting some meds, and the voices went away. He was living a normal life for a while. The father found out about it, cut him off, and said, "Our church is going to pray for you, and this is in God's hand." So it was kind of sad. And then he came back months later, and we said, "Philip, we're not going to test you again. We know what's causing this." Okay, this is one of the nuttiest ones. Reagan called us from Tacoma, Washington. His his claim was telepathy. He said he could send 47 out of 50 regular playing cards to his buddy Fernando in another room. Now, for those of you who delve into statistics, 47 out of 50 randomly shuffled playing cards, off the charts, impossible. Forget about it. You could bet your whole family that they're not going to succeed on luck alone. So we schedule him, and he doesn't show up for the first test. And he calls a week later, and he said, "Sorry, I couldn't make it. I was in jail." I was like, "Oh, yeah, jail, huh? Okay, right." And I called the jail, and I said, "Did you have a guy named Reagan in jail last weekend?" And the guy said, "Yeah, why are you asking?" I said, "You're not going to believe this, but he's supposed to be tested for psychic ability in Los Angeles." "Well, he was here." I said, "Do you mind if I ask what he was in for?" And he said, "Malicious destruction of property." I said, "Okay, send him down." So the next weird thing about him was they decided, these two guys decided to take a bus to Los Angeles from Tacoma. That's a 23-hour bus trip that cost, back then, it was like $200 for the bus trip. And it was like $210 for a plane. So get there in 2 hours. So we started asking ourselves, we're brainstorming what's going on here. Maybe these guys are nuts and just want a piece of us, because you can get on a bus with a gun, but you can't get on a plane with a gun. So we're a little hyper vigilant. Fortunately, I got the guy frisking them there is an ex LAPD. So we frisked them. We looked in their shoes for transmitters. We checked them. Um, this is their second time getting to the building, though. They had come 2 hours earlier while we were setting up. And I said, "We're not ready for you guys. Come back at 11 o'clock. They came back stewed to the gills, 2/3 of a bottle of vodka gone, and they're like weaving in. So now, like I said, we got to huddle. Does this disqualify him? Is it okay to test drunk people for supernatural ability? We were like, no, I guess not. They could be drunk as long as they're not belligerent. So, okay, we're going to test you now. 47 out of 50. Reagan decided that he needed to have his shirt off during the test. Don't ask me why. It's not for me to decide. That's your thing. If you need your shirt off, you can have your shirt off. And there's Fernando in the other room, like 2 doors down. You'll notice uh, in the pictures that the windows are blocked out. Just in case, talk about overthinking the protocol. There's apartment buildings across the way, and if there was a way to find out what the uh, cards were, we didn't want anybody to be. So both of them are facing away from the windows, and the windows are blocked off. That's the kind of thing. Now, in the middle of this, Reagan's about halfway through, and a big gob of drool starts coming down his face, and I'm like, "Wipe your face, man. You're in the middle. You're being filmed here. Wipe your face off." My mother was there. We allowed some. My mother was there from Chicago, and afterwards she's like, "This is what you do for a living?" No one else is going to do it. Who else? So, oh, also he had Reagan had some little octopus marks on him. I don't know what those were either. Maybe he was at a fight. I don't know. Here's the scoreboard. Um, so he missed all 52 cards. You had about, there was like a 50-50 chance of getting one right. There was a 100% chance of getting one right if you guessed the same card every time. Um, but they couldn't even get the guesses right because they there were a couple of guesses that this one, three of them that were not even cards. Fernando said Jack of Aces. No, that's a miss. No Jack of Aces. So he went 0 for 52 and was pretty good natured about it. He was like, "Okay, thanks a lot," and they just went on their merry way. After, I mean, they 23 hours in a bus, a drunken morning in Los Angeles, and they're like, "Okay, off to the next adventure." He never. He's still. Derek asked that he put his shirt back on. Although, yeah, he did, because that's afterward. So he did put his shirt back in. I guess he needed to keep that machinery cool while he was making his guesses. Okay, last test here is Donnie. Donnie said he could channel vibrations from a distance. What does that mean? For Donnie, it meant, and this gets complicated, and don't ask me how he figured this out, but he could do an interpretive dance, and when he changed style of dances, that means the music changed. But he's not hearing the music, he's intuiting the change in music. So I'm like, look, man, I don't know a mambo from a samba, so we're going to have to figure out something for the change. So we said, raise your hand up in the air like this. This is going to indicate the change. So then we had, so then, and this is through months of negotiations, we figured out there's going to be 7 clips of music between 33 and 76 seconds each. He doesn't know how long any of them are going to last or when they're even going to start. And he's got to indicate when the change is. So we put this down and created an audio graph for it. And I don't know if you can see this, but those straight lines there, that's white noise. So we put a little band of like a second of white noise in there so we can have a visual demarcation of when it changed. And the music was radically different. I mean, it started with James Brown and went right to Mozart and then Frank Sinatra and Willie Nelson. It was all over the map. So he danced away. He actually got the last one right, but he had to get 4 out of 7 correctly. But I mean, who would think that sound mixing and all this other stuff would have to be a part of these tests? So a few quick takeaways just of the tests themselves. No one has ever passed a controlled test. No universe. I mean, there are early stuff that in the early days, like Uri Geller, when the alleged psychics were fooling people, and it was because the professors and the people in the universities were not looking for magic tricks. They're used to just testing things and observing and thinking that whatever they see is right. We've since learned to be a little sharper. No one has even passed the first test, the 5,000 to 1 test. And we got a little bit of criticism because, the argument is if you test enough people, someone's just going to win by luck. You might win the first test by luck. You're not going to win both by luck. 5,000 to 1 and 1,000,000 to 1 to win both, that's 5 billion to 1 odds on winning it by luck alone. I'll take those odds. High profile people won't be tested. John Edward, James Van Prague, Long Island Medium, Tyler Henry, none of them. They want no part of us. They got nothing to win. Science has just not seen any evidence for the existence of any paranormal ability. Okay, let's look at a couple of demonstrations. Remember these things, power balance bracelets, the little rubber things. They got a little they had a little hologram on them that's supposed to align your chakras or some shit. I don't know. And so what we did was we took, here's the hologram. It's just a, like, this thing probably cost 2 cents. The whole thing cost 2 cents, and they're selling them for 30 or 40 bucks back in the day. Um, so, and you see pro athletes were wearing these things for a while. I mean, they were really popular. So, speaking of real athletes, that's Dominique Dawes, who you might remember in Atlanta in 1996, was an Olympic gymnast. She was working for Yahoo News, and they came to us and they said, "Would you be interested in testing power balance bracelets?" And I said, "Would I? Hell yeah!" So what we did, we got 4 of these things, and we dug the hologram out of 3 of them and then taped them up so you didn't know if you were wearing a hologram or not, right? Double blind test. Because if it's a lucky rabbit's foot and you know the lucky rabbit's foot's on you, you might be able to shoot a basket, make more free throws or be a little bit better. It's a psychological thing. But if you don't know whether you have it on or not, then it's up to the thing itself to cause a difference. So we got 16 people together, formed 4 different groups. Each would wear a different bracelet each time they went through. None of them knew what they were wearing at the time. And we changed the order up to make sure there's something called the order effect. Now, so what we did was we created uh, this obstacle course and had people run through the obstacle course. And then the guy sitting on the table there is bending over and he had to touch a line and you could see how far he could stretch. So the claim on the package was strength, balance, and flexibility. So we thought we sort of tested all 3 of those things. And so everybody runs through, and then we staggered the order to make up for the order effect. Some people had the actual one on the first time, second time, third time, to even everything out. So, of course, what would you, like I said, what you would expect is to have a spike when they were running through with the actual power balance bracelet on. You should see those people get through the course faster on average, obviously faster, and you should see them be more flexible on average. What happened? There's the graph. Look how even those lines are all the way across. The actual power balance bracelet turned out to be C, which on the run through, the timing on the run through was the tied for the worst time, and then it was slightly better than the other. But I mean, visually, you can even see that there's no real effect here. You would see it if it was had any great thing. Okay, last thing, we these goddamn flat earthers. So, National Geographic Explorer heard that we were having big arguments with the flat earthers in Southern California. So they proposed a test, and we decided to uh, test the idea of flat Earth in on the Salton Sea, which is an inland, extremely salty body of water, 150 miles from Los Angeles. So why are we even bothering with these people? A couple of reasons. First of all, I thought it would be kind of cool. Most of us go through most of our lives without having visual representation of the curvature of the Earth. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to actually see it for ourselves. I have no doubt that it's there, but I don't see it normally. I'm going based on other evidence. So I wanted to do that. I also think that any honestly posed inquiry, if people are having real questions about this, then it's okay to sit down with them, misguided as they may be, to try to explain and show them that this is not the case. And then finally, I just wanted to see what they would say when they saw, you know, that the Earth is a globe and not flat. So we went out to the Salton Sea for a few different reasons. It's pretty calm. If the wind is not blowing out there, this is the perfect spot. It's fairly cool. You don't want a lot of heat because the heat shimmering off the water can sometimes cause oasis type optical illusions. The air is pretty good again if it's not blowing. There's not many people out there, and the sight lines are pretty good. So it was a good place to go. So we chose these two spots. One was used to be a very popular park out there, and then a shore near a little town. And the distance between those two places was 9.6 miles. So at 9.6 miles, according to Earth Curvature Calculator, at 4 feet off the deck, at 9.6 miles, you will not be able to see anything below about 34 feet up in the air. Everything is covered by the hump of the Earth. So, okay, we know where we are, we know where they are. We get this set up. They have these certain cameras that they love. We're gonna let them do that. We did two different versions of this test. One was an air-based test. So we got these big weather balloons and hook a mesh and some mylar to it so it reflected. And to my great pleasure, it looked like the flying spaghetti monster when it was up there. It was not on purpose, but that's what it looked like. They did not see it till it was 40 feet in the air. No one saw it. The other test was a water-based test where we made this big sort of banner. We took it out into the Salton Sea on a boat. Those stripes are exactly 1 foot between them. So by the time you get to be 3 miles out, and believe me, that thing's just a little speck. You need magnification to see it. By the time it gets to be 3 miles out, you lose one of those stripes. If you're holding it right on the edge of the water, you should lose one of those stripes. You have to be lower than the 4 feet, but we worked all that out. Anyway, so they what were the results? You know, it's kind of crazy, but well, actually, we were a bit surprised. The results are that the world is concave, not flat, or globe. No, it's of course it was round, and we had this big argument. The woman in the middle, underneath the microphone, was from National Geographic, and her mouth is just open, listening to these guys. That even in front of their own eyes, they just could not comprehend that they could have this wrong. And we're like, why do you even think this? And someone mentioned this at one of the earlier ones, but man, the conspiracy theories that come out of these guys. Oh, it's all the NASA and the science and we've never been to the moon, and then Kennedy, and then it always ends up with the Jews somehow. That's the Jews. Yeah. My wife's Jewish. She hates when I say that. But all you got to do is listen to these guys. Just talk to them long enough. It'll be about the Jews controlling everything somehow. Um, so that's it. They would not take no for an answer, and that's what happened. They're still at it, and some of them are making money at it, and that's what it is. So I've spilled my guts to you guys, and that's all I have. By the way, I'll take some questions in a second, but we had these little bookmarks made up that said, "Do you have superpowers?" on it, and then the website to get to our $500,000 paranormal challenge. So they're on the tables on the side there. Please grab a few of them, and the next time you're in a conversation with someone who thinks they can defy the laws of physics, hand them one of these things and say, "Knock yourself out." Thanks a lot. Any questions? Step up to the microphone, and it's gonna adjust for you. Don't
Yeah.
touch the microphone.
Don't touch the microphone. So it'll adjust.
Yes, sir. Yeah, they were quoting these optical illusions. Some of them were quoting these optical illusions. I think one of them was Fatima Morgana. But some of these things, like when you see an oasis or you see something floating up in the air like that, this is a real, it's usually like a temperature inversion. And I think a lot of times it flips the image upside down. And the image that they saw was not flipped. So it wasn't what they were saying it was going to be. But just, I mean, they all use GPS to get to this thing. GPS doesn't work without global satellites, geosynchronous satellites.
Global
So,
positioning satellites, I
yeah.
believe.
Oh,
But
oh,
yeah, it
yeah.
definitely requires a sphere.
Yeah.
Anyone ever? We got some more question. Another question?
Hi. I was just in Oslo, Norway, a couple of weekends ago for um, the annual gathering of the Parapsychologist Association. Why is that moving?
Psychic. It's psychic
Maybe I
ability,
get the money.
telekinesis.
And what I'm wondering is yours in in that group, you would think that it is believers trying to find their evidence. They would love to do so, but the skepticism is half and half. It's pure scientific objectivity in this course of study. Um, what is what is your counterpoint, um, within the organization? Because for objectivity to exist, you can't have somebody who's just like, I know that the paranormal exists, and I'm gonna prove it. But by the same token, it can, the I know it doesn't exist, and I'm gonna prove it is just as far on the other side of the scale from that objectivity that's in the middle.
Well, the tests are objective. So there's no interpretation about the results of the test. It's very clear that they have to do a certain thing and everybody has to observe it and agree. And we video everything.
Right.
We take lots of pictures. There's no question as to what happened. So even if I'm not objective as a person, the test is completely objective
Okay.
and you can either do it or you can't.
Is there any affiliation with actual parapsychologists, actual scientists?
Well, we have lots of our fellows are we have Nobel Prize winners on our side.
Right.
We're chock full of scientists. I don't know about their side. I don't.
And it's from them that the tests are being developed.
We're developing the tests. They're developing the applicants. I
Okay.
think
All right. Thank you.
Well, you're also not making the claim.
we're not
So,
making the claim.
right, the person who's making the claim has the burden of proof.
Right. So and to be clear, I mean it's kind of hard to say categorically that this stuff doesn't exist because I can't test all 8 billion people on earth. You could keep saying there's one person still left out there that has it. But Randy had this great analogy one time. He's like, somebody thinks reindeer can fly. Okay, let's get a whole bunch of them up on the top of the Sears Tower and kick them off, and let's see if they can fly. Splat, 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 splat until it's as tall as the roof. When do you stop? When do you start saying, okay, we've tested enough of these people? It really probably does not exist. You could at least say that, even if you can't categorically say no reindeer can fly. You can certainly say 100% of the people we've tested so far could not do it, and that's what we say.
All right. Thank you.
Do you have any other questions? I see somebody coming up. While you're coming up, I just want to let folks know that Margaret needs banner carriers for the parade tomorrow. Please check with her in the back. So thanks. Yes, your question?
So I am also a person who is very skeptical about this, but I'm also a person who reads sci-fi and fantasy and sometimes just has a bad emotional week. So I'm guessing, are there any tests or any applicants who you had a little bit of like, either because of their personality or because of their claim, you were like, had the thought of it would be nice if this one was true, or you had just a moment of just like it would be interesting if this one was turned out to be true?
I'm almost more interested in that from the standpoint of after we've been doing this for 23 years, is our game still sharp? Can we be fooled? Because I really don't think, I mean, even the theoretical science is not backing any of this up. So the theoretical science says it's not possible. The actual testing says it never happens. And a lot of the people are sweet and they're kind of fun to work with. But I actually would not embrace turning all of known science on its head right now.
Thank you.
Some would disagree, though. I mean, some people are like, yeah, I hope we find something. I'm like, not so
That
much.
should be interesting, wouldn't it?
Yeah. I'd have to look. Yeah, Derek's in that camp.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
Good question.
Hello. So, do any of the participants that are in your studies ever reach a moment of clarity? So, after you've conducted the study and proved to them, hey, you can't actually read minds or anything like, where someone goes, damn, I really can't. Oh my gosh. And they just have like an existential crisis or anything like that?
That's a great question. It's rare. Most of them accept it because there's no denying what just happened 2 minutes ago. Most of them do that, and then they go, make accusations. But a couple of them said, I really need to rethink this because, especially if we're nice to them, and we always are, and we take some time with them and say, look, this is the reason this thing is moving is because some of these air currents are not at all apparent. There's something called Brownian motion, there's this and that, and because you're cupping your hand in this way or something, that's why this thing is moving. So please consider that this explains why you're having this experience. And a couple of them over the years actually have said, shit, maybe I'll just move on.
Thank you.
Rare insight. Okay, and I got another question coming up.
So, some people who claim to have paranormal abilities in terms of like having, in terms of like tarot cards or astrology or stuff, that stuff's very vague. And I was wondering if you ever had any experiences where you had to try to figure out some way to test that type of stuff.
Yeah, that's tougher because that's a good question too. Those are cold reading things, and you're going to get hits with cold reading if you're good at it, whether or not you have psychic ability. So, Angie mentioned where you're shooting this series called Skeptalab, and go to skeptalab.tv, by the way, to get to it. But one of the episodes was on astrology. Julia Sweeney was my guest host with that. And what we did was we went out on Hollywood Boulevard, and this is an old trick, but most people don't know it. We put all 12 astrological signs, free astrological reading on the front of the table, and people would just walk by and say, oh, cool, give me a reading. They'd pick out their Libra reading, they'd read it. I'd say, how well did the reading do? That's a 9 out of 10, that is me. And then I'd say, pick an Aries out of there and read that one. And of course, it's the exact same reading. And they're like, oh, shit, they're all the same, aren't they? Yeah, they are all the same because you can easily say something or write something that applies to most human beings. You're an American living in, you speak English, we all have, you hate to admit it, but a lot of our experiences are pretty similar, and it's easy for a psychic or an astrologer, which use some of the same techniques, to make it sound like they know you when they don't, and they don't have to.
Yep. Thank you so much, Jim, for joining us for
Yeah,
your
thanks,
first Dragon
everybody.
Con. Yay.
You guys have been great.
Thank you so much for joining us. So a couple of schedule notes. Number one, Blake Smith's panel was so very popular. He's going to give the same talk again at 10 p.m. in this room. Now, as an adjunct to that, we are double booked this room and for the comedy tour from here and over the hotel formerly known as Sheraton. And so that is actually going to be at the other hotel, but we're going to be redoing Blake's talk here. It's not going to be part 2. It's going to be the same talk. But please come and join us because it was a terrific talk. And I'm sure we'll have different questions and everything. It was wonderful. Thank you so much for joining us here on the Skeptic Track. We'll see you again soon.